Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. I don't know. It's the fall back. It messes with me. The fall
It's
back is
that
a lot
burned
better.
plastic getting to your brain.
Oh, the burned plastic too. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, we in our apartment, our air conditioner wasn't working yesterday. We had the maintenance fellow come over to fix it, and everything was working right. And then about an hour before the broadcast was to start, I was in my office and I smelled burned plastic. It was pretty noxious. And then I went out to the kitchen and Jen had also smelled something and was trying to figure out what it was. Long story short, our air conditioner, I think it something burnt out.
Died or
Yeah, yeah. So now the whole apartment has this burned plastic smell.
it's
And
lovely.
it was so bad that while I was talking to Jen, I could feel my throat scratching up and stuff like that. So I've got my cough drops and cool, tasty beverage to hopefully get through the broadcast tonight and be able to be understood without sounding like some gravelly voiced visitor from who knows where. Anyway, this is the first broadcast for the month of November. We're glad to be here tonight, and tonight's topic is Soulmate in the air tonight. This one was written by our friend from Australia, Glenn, and we're happy to have this write up from him this evening. And it is something to look forward to, and we'll get into that in just a second. But first, we'll say hello to the rest of my panel members. Of course, for those listening for the first time, my name is Cripps, and I'm the host of the broadcast. And I could not do it without the rest of the panel. There's no way I would do this by myself. I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be enjoyable to me, and I have no desire to do that. So, accompanying me every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll introduce our friend Nez Lover, or Marisa from the Nez Lover channel. Let's hear from her first. Say hello to the peoples, and if you have any opening comments, please make them.
Hello to the peoples. Woo! Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. I'm glad to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this show. I know it's been months and months, but I'm always excited when it gets to be Sunday. Oh, I can't wait to get into this topic. I love Glenn's write ups. I hope everyone had a great weekend or the rest of your weekend that's left for those who are still in the daytime parts of the world.
Right.
But remember to turn your clocks back and all of that.
Yeah.
Thanks again, everybody. Could you please share it out on your social media if you're so inclined? And I'll be sharing a few links throughout the course of this stream you may or may not want to check out involving Cripps and Jen and myself. All right, I can't wait to get into this conversation. Thank you so much for everybody for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Marisa, for bringing that up. I'm going to mention it briefly so that they know what one of the links is going to be, at least, and that is Jen and Marisa and myself were part of a live reading of a partial script of the movie Jaws, and that can be found on Scully's House of Thrillers, and that Nez will put that link in there for anyone that wants to hear that. Please be aware that there was some drama in the chat, so try to ignore that if you possibly can. It did not affect the performance very much, and we got through it, and I think it's wonderful. So if you like that sort of thing, theater of the mind, so to speak, and playing different characters and going through part of the script of Jaws, please click the link when you get a chance. Of course, wait till after this broadcast. My goodness. But it'll be there for you. So thank you for that, Marisa. All right, and also I would like to introduce my wonderful, amazing wife, Jen. And Jen, please say hello to the peoples. If you have any open comments, please make them.
Yes, hello, peoples. Sorry about the little bit of fan noise in the background. I don't know if it's like super.
Sounds okay.
Okay, good, because it's just yeah. It's helping.
You have to have the fan to get the burned plastic smell out of it.
Like, oh, geez. But doing great. Very much looking forward to this write-up from Glenn and the article. And gosh, I love this Phil Collins song. It's one of my favorites. So really looking forward to it. Glad to be here with the panel and everybody on the chat. Welcome, everybody.
Well, there you go. See, you sound like you're in good spirits even after the burned plastic conundrum.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jen. All right. Last but certainly not least, we'll hear from the writer of the write-up tonight that we're about to get into. our friend from Australia, Glenn. Glenn, say hello to the peoples if you would. If you have any opening comments, please make them.
Yeah, hi. I'm here, back from Canberra. Would you believe it? My son had a problem with his air conditioner, so I went down to him and, another air conditioner. But we sorted that out. My other son was there as well, Jonathan. So we had a day together, which was awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
and then I dodged all the potholes. Well, I didn't quite dodge all of them. I thought the front of the car had disappeared at one point.
Oh, no.
I thought, I've done.
We're done for. Up there goes. We're out.
I'll have a blowout, or I'll rip the front suspension off, but it managed to take it. So,
yeah,
the Subaru's not too bad. Took it, but my goodness, it gave me a fright. I had a bottle of water in my hand, and it hit the roof, and I hit the roof almost. So,
oh my gosh!
Yeah, the roads are all. Even the highway was shut. Still, we got floods here and all that kind of stuff going on.
Oh no.
Anyway, that's life. We'll deal with it.
Glad you got back home safe, Glenn.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Well, good to hear. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. All right. Well, before we get into the write-up, we would like to take a minute to say hello to anyone in the chat. And if anyone pops in, we will say hello to them when we can. But Jen, take a minute and say hello to the folks in the chat for us before we get started.
All righty. We've got Okie Grower. Hey, Okie. We've got our lovely Nez. Bobby just popped in. Hey, Bobby. We have also got John Dons. Is he still in California?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, popping in from Cali, West Coast. We've got our very own Glenn, and Janet popped in earlier. She might still be listening. Sometimes she just listens. Welcome, everybody.
Going down to Cali.
Hi, Bobby. Hi, Okie.
Yeah, by the way, Okie, appreciate you being the voice of reason last night in the chat. You did the best that you could. Appreciate everything that you tried to do to bring order again. Seemed like a lost cause, though, for a while there, but appreciate your efforts. Thank you. All right. Let's go. Oh, Bobby says, I got timed out on the Jaws chat. Me, WTF. What did I do? Someone didn't like me. Oh, I don't know why that would happen. I mean, I didn't read everything that was said in there. We were trying to read the script, but I don't know.
I wouldn't worry about that, Bobby, with the craziness that was going on. It probably was just friendly fire and you got hit, because that's all I'm saying. It was woohoo. So
it was hectic. All right. We're going to focus on our write-up tonight. And sorry about that, guys. Just a little bit of residual from the events of yesterday evening, but I want to say hello to Jamie, who just popped in the chat. Hello, Jamie. Jamie is our dear friend, and she's a wonderful person, and love talking to her in the messenger from time to time. And we've had a video conference call and a couple other conversations. Just a wonderful person. So thank you, Jamie, for being here tonight. All right, let's dive in. Tonight's topic, as I said, is Soulmate in the air tonight, and it starts with a quote. Fortunately for me, it's not Paulo. A true soulmate is a mirror, the person who shows you everything that is holding you back, the person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. Oh my gosh, what a great quote. And that's by Elizabeth Gilbert. Glenn begins. Tonight's show is a change of pace. We'll examine a news article which details the power of attraction that led a mother of two to take a giant leap into the unknown, as most people would see it. Regardless of what anyone thinks of her actions, there are many philosophical, moral, and ethical issues that are raised here. Let's see what some of these are. Now to In the Air Tonight, written by Phil Collins during a divorce situation. The words are powerful, even if somewhat ambiguous. What a drum break. And the link is in the description. We'll talk more about that when the write-up is read. Cripps will read the article, link below, but for brevity, here is a summary of events. Quote, mom of two leaves her husband of 14 years for a stranger she was convinced was her soulmate after one magical night at the conference, only to be ghosted by him. As said, the link is in the description. You can read that article for yourself by clicking the link in the description. Here's a couple more links in case anyone is interested. Those are in there as well. One thing is certain, regardless of how we as humans define soulmate, the undeniable power of connection led this lady to step out of the box and put everything on the line. My friend Annie defines a soulmate as, quote, a person that you have a connection with that supersedes anything worldly. It's not about passion, needs, or wants. There isn't a need to try to understand the other person. There is no loss or leaving because the connection can't be broken, end quote.
Hey, Cripps.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, I think Glenn wants you to read the article before moving forward, if I'm not mistaken.
Because people may not have read it, so they need to get some context.
Oh, no problem. My apologies. Okay, let me go back up here just a second. I did click on the link, so I have it ready. Just a moment.
Cool. Thank you, Cripps.
Sure. Mom of two leaves her husband of 14 years for a stranger she was convinced was her soulmate after one magical night at a conference, only to be ghosted by him. An Australian mother of two has spoken about meeting her soulmate while on her work trip with her husband, and the decision that saw her walk away from her marriage only to get rejected. Amanda Trenfield, who lives in Sydney, was looking to reconnect with her husband after 14 years together, which led her to tag along on his 3-day work conference in Margaret River, Western Australia. But at dinner on the very first night, Amanda locked eyes with Jason and felt an instant spark of chemistry, far stronger than anything she had felt before. A month later, she left her husband, having not spoken to Jason since the event, in pursuit of her soulmate, only to discover he didn't want a relationship with her. In her memoir, aptly named When a Soulmate Says No, Amanda describes meeting her match, the connection she felt to him, and what happened after she was left high and dry, without any man at all. After having a free-flowing conversation over dinner with Jason on that first night, Amanda returned to the couple's hotel only to find her mystery soulmate offering her and her husband a drink. It happened to be my favorite rosé, and during the course of that evening, we just stayed talking. There was a depth of connection I just hadn't felt before, Amanda told Maya Friedman on the No Filter podcast. The following morning, Amanda rang Jason's room to ask if he would like to have a conversation about their feelings, to which he obliged. They went on a bushwalk with her husband, while her husband attended the conference. I opened the conversation with, "I felt strange and very connected to you last night," and said he felt the same way, she said. They shared a few kisses during the course of that morning before parting ways, unsure of if or when they would see each other again. Amanda describes that morning as having changed the course of her life, but not in the way she expected. A few weeks later, she told her husband that their marriage was over before reaching out to Jason to see if he would like to reconnect. After initially agreeing to see her, Jason emailed the following morning to say he felt it was best they didn't see each other or stay in touch. He was there in those moments and felt the connection like I did. He felt the kiss like I did. He decided to say no and move forward with his life without looking back, she said. Amanda's decision sparked a viral discussion on Twitter among commenters who were shocked by the way she blew up her life, with one writing, "Never in my life have I encountered someone romanticizing a one-night stand that didn't even happen. One commented she was convinced they had a connection, but I see no evidence they did. She just projected onto a random dude because she was unhappy, which we've all been there, but we don't uproot our lives for it. A third added, yeah, I ditched my husband's kids of 14 years to live life with you after meeting you once because you're my soulmate, might have been coming on a bit strong. No wonder, he said, no. Commenter argued Amanda's children may need therapy after reading her book when they get older, writing, I want to read the point of view of the two young children when they grow up. Another commented, therapist, ... So why are you here today? And the kid says, slams this book down on the table. However, others defended Amanda's decision to leave her marriage. Quote, I don't really find this embarrassing. She obviously hated her life, and the emotional zing of a crush was all she needed to end it all, one wrote. Another said, this seems normal and fine. Maybe I'm missing something. Like, I get that it's embarrassing to fall into limerence and get rejected, but is that worse? Oh, it scrolled up. Sorry. Is that worse? Wow, it really scrolled up. Okay, let me start the sentence again. Like, I get that it's embarrassing to fall into limerence and get rejected, but is that worse than staying in an unhappy marriage? End of article. All right, just a moment, folks. I have to take a sip of my water. That so unprofessional. Burnt plastic taste in my throat. My apologies. Okay. So that's the article, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm going to continue with Glenn's write-up, and then we'll get started with the questions. There's a couple more links that Glenn added for anyone that's interested. Going back, one thing is certain, regardless of how we as humans define soulmate, the undeniable power of connection led this lady to step out of the box and put everything on the line. My friend Annie defines a soulmate as a person that you have a connection with that supersedes anything worldly. It's not about passion, needs, or wants. There isn't a need to try to understand the other person. There's no loss or leaving because the connection can't be broken. Whilst the connection may be unbreakable, in my opinion, that does not mean that soulmate connections cannot be tinged with both joy and sadness. After all, we're human. What about you? Do you believe in the concept of a soulmate? And if so, how would you describe/define such a thing? Do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous and something over which one has no control? What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you? For believers, I'm guessing, and it is only a guess, that some of you will say soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God. Maybe it can be both, with people and God. Maybe it will be seen as the work of nefarious forces. Regardless of whether you are as skeptical of such associations, let's look at the scenario in question from the perspective of life can change in an instant, and it is about the journey, not the outcome. Now to the article, you've read it, you've heard it. I think most people are conditioned to not think outside the norm or the square. But when we look deeper, is there more to it? Opinions invited on these readers' comments from the article. Never in my life have I encountered someone romanticizing a one-night stand that didn't even happen. Another comment, she was convinced they had a connection, but I see no evidence they did. She just projected onto a random dude because she was unhappy, which we've all been there, but we don't uproot our lives for it. Another comment, yeah, I ditched my husband's kids of 14 years to live my life with you after meeting you once because you're my soulmate, might have been coming on a bit strong. No wonder he said, no. I don't really find this embarrassing. She obviously hated her life, and the emotional zing of a crush was all she needed to end it all. All right, last quote. This seems normal and fine. Maybe I'm missing something. Like, I get that it's embarrassing to fall into limerence and get rejected, but is that worse than staying in an unhappy marriage? All right, one moment. Okay, there we go. Whether or not her soulmate experience led her to end a marriage, the bottom line is, was there any lack of integrity in her actions? Was there any moral compromise? Were her children affected negatively or benefited positively? Is she now being her, quote, true self, unquote, rather than a pretend self? The personal side of all this is anyone willing to put their hand up to have an experience of such connection? As the song says, quote, I can feel it coming in the air tonight, O Lord, and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life, O Lord. I smiled at the lyrics. How true. I was waiting, but had no idea I was waiting until I was waiting no more. Quote, a soulmate is not found. A soulmate is recognized. And that quote is by Veronica Tugaliva. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly. But it is in the description for anyone to check my pronunciation. Wow. Okay. Well. We have quite a topic here tonight. I happen to love the idea of soulmates, and we'll get into that when we answer the questions. I will say first, as Jen mentioned, the song, I love Glenn's song choices, even some of the instrumentals. Oh, it looks like, okay, Jen, you're back. Sorry, I didn't know you were gone there. Jen? Can anyone else hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. So I was talking about the song. So this is one of my favorite songs, and Phil Collins is one of my favorite artists. He has a lot of songs in his repertoire that are really, really good. And indeed, as Glenn says, what a drum break. Absolutely true. Okay, just a second, guys. I apologize. Jen, are you back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I lost audio and then it wouldn't let me back in and there was still no audio. That's good.
I'm sorry. I was reading and I wasn't looking. I didn't know that you were out. So my apologies.
No worries.
Have you wait.
I have no idea what you have said so far though. But
Okay. Sorry about all the technical stuff tonight, guys. We're a little discombobulated by all this stuff, so I apologize. I will say hello to a few people that popped in the chat while I was reading the article. Rachel Menifee, thank you for being here tonight. Also, Wisconsin Greg, hello to you, Wisconsin Greg. We appreciate you being
Wisconsin.
here. Sheba B, thank you for coming. We glad to see you here. Annette Sandrock, our friend. Annette, welcome. And this is me. Welcome. This is me. Appreciate you coming as well. And I think that's about everybody. Thank you guys for taking the time to join our broadcast. All right. And we're going to get started with the questions in just a moment. Okay. Got my cough drop. I'm ready to go. All right. So scrolling down to the first question. I'll read the last sentence before the questions start. Whilst the connection may be unbreakable, in my opinion, that does not mean that soulmate connections cannot be tinged with both joy and sadness. After all, we're human. First question, what about you? Do you believe in the concept of a soulmate? And if so, how would you describe / define such a thing? Let's start with Marisa. Marisa, if you don't mind, what's your answer to that question?
To me, a soulmate is someone whose soul is similar to yours. And what I mean when I say that is you have similar wants or needs or desires, gifts or abilities. You guys are similar. I know we're all unique individuals, certainly, I believe, as God made us. But that's not to say you can't have some things shared with other people, similar qualities, traits, etc. And I believe we can encounter many people that are our soulmate in that respect, whether they're friends, lovers, whatever. But just because you may encounter them doesn't mean that either one of the people encountering each other is ready to drop everything to carry forward together. You can still have those similarities and still not be ready or even meant to carry on an extended relationship beyond a certain point. You just happen to meet somebody who's a lot like you in some very important ways.
Sure.
And I don't believe it means just because you meet someone who's your soulmate in that respect, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see them every day for the rest of your life or even have them in your life. I think it's more like when you see a shooting star or when you witness a bolt of lightning or see a double rainbow. I think it's a blessing, and it lasts as long as it lasts, and it is what it is. And I think you should still be thankful, but I think it's that way. I think it's more of a happening, and I don't think everybody has that happen or recognizes when that happens.
Wow. Wonderful.
Beautiful answer.
Yeah. We can just end the broadcast now.
That
was great. Yeah, Marisa explained it all. Nobody has anything else to add. There it is.
No more questions. Good night.
No more questions. Thank you, Marisa. That was very good. I want to say before we move on, that ties into what Marisa was saying. There's a movie, and people may disagree on this. It's called Cloud Atlas, and I really enjoyed it. It got some good reviews, some bad, just like anything else, I'm sure. But this idea of people having soulmates, not necessarily being that you're in love with that person the rest of your life, like Marisa was saying, but people that you're meant to meet. And these characters were in different bodies and different names throughout history. And the movie, in my opinion, it's also a book. I read the book before I saw the movie. Then they came out. The movie had Tom Hanks and Halle Berry and other people in it. And all these people had met before in previous lives, and they kept meeting. And even though they're in different bodies, different names, different relationships, they all ran into each other again and again and again. I just find that fascinating. I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation myself, but I've always been fascinated by the idea of it. It's really, really interesting to me. Anyway, if you haven't seen Cloud Atlas, it's got some really good music into it. I like the storylines in it, and it is this idea that you keep running into the same people over and over again. And that isn't the only time I've seen that concept. So it's interesting, at least, right? So Marisa might have something there. What do you think, Jen? What about you? Do you believe in the concept of a soulmate? And if so, how do you describe / define such a thing?
Crap. I'm sort of still in the question about this. A part of me believes that there are soulmates. But then I'm not sure if God creates just one person. Well, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know the answer to this question.
Okay.
I believe if there were a thing such as soulmates, someone that was created for you specifically, I feel that with you, not to be all mushy or anything like that. But we've had discussions a lot of the times how you and I connect on every level and how we fit together like puzzle pieces. And it's just, there's not even a word for it.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to explain. So in that case, I lean more toward that being a possibility.
Yeah.
But we serve an amazing infinite God, and I it wouldn't be out of the realm of my mind to think that there could potentially be other people that are created to feel in specific ways or perfect ways or miraculous ways, but I don't know for sure. I think sometimes the idea of a soulmate can get people into trouble.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we might get into this more with the other questions, but sometimes people, like the article actually mentioned limerence, which I've been researching. It's kind of like when you're addicted to being in love.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Yeah. You
did I break
went
up?
out for a second. Yeah.
Okay.
So describe limerence again, because that's what you were doing. I think that's what we
Oh,
missed.
okay. Yeah, the article mentioned limerence, and I've been researching it lately, and it's sort of like when someone's addicted to being in love and they do project their feelings onto the other person as if it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And it can lead to obsession. It can lead, it's not good.
Right.
And so I think in that realm, it can go haywire, especially if it's mainly focused on feelings, like the chemicals and stuff. So I'll say about that, but I'm still kind of in the question about it. That's why I'm really excited about this write-up.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. There's a lot here to be excited about for sure. Even talking about it is exciting. Thank you, Jen. And I think being in the question about something like this is a good place to be, because I don't think there's evidence on either side of the coin. No one's been able to prove that we have soulmates at this point, as far as I'm aware. There's been a lot written about it. There's been songs and movies and books and all kinds of things written about this topic for quite some time, for thousands of years, probably, talking about this concept of soulmate. So there's a lot there. Before we get to Glenn, I'm going to say hello to a couple of folks that came in the chat while we're talking. First in was, and here we go again. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. And also Derby Jack Ministry. We know Derby, and welcome to the both of you. Thank you for stopping by. I think that's it for now. Like I say, if anyone pops in, we'll try to say hello to them when we get a chance. I don't like to interrupt people while they're answering the questions, but we do want everyone to feel welcome. Okay. All right. So Marisa and Jen weighed in. Let's hear from Glenn on this one. What do you think, Glenn? Do you believe in the concept of a soulmate? And if so, how would you describe / define such a thing?
I certainly agree with it, but boy, it is a difficult question.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that the initial quote has a lot of meaning. True soulmate is a mirror. The person who shows you everything that's holding you back.
Yeah.
The person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. I think it's like there are people in life that give you something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's, I would think, usually reciprocated or identifiable by both parties. I'm not saying it has to be, but I just get the feeling that I'm just extrapolating, but I just think that it's each person in a situation like this does recognize it, something extraordinary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna use the answers that everyone had to answer this question. I'm also going to use Annie, whose quote is in the description, because I thought the quote was beautiful and wonderful, and it describes it very well. I'm going to read the quote one more time. A person that you have a connection with that supersedes anything worldly. Now, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Jen and I have this ongoing conversation about the situation with their parents. And, we're theorizing what they must be saying about me, because I'm we think, we don't know specifically, but the beginning of the no contact started basically because of what they did when they were here, crossing Jen's boundaries, as she's talked about before. And then the next Tuesday phone conversation where they made their worries, quote unquote, about me clear to Jen and didn't come to me with it. And we were just talking before the broadcast about this, what they're thinking, what they feel about me, and the fact that they just don't know who Jen is now. And that's part of the problem. And we're theorizing about their opinions of me. So the first part of Annie's quote, I love this part because it is timely to what we're going through. That connection with that supersedes anything worldly, and some of their complaints about me are definitely worldly, i.e., not having a full-time job with benefits, and Jen making more money than I am, at least at present, while I'm looking for something more and doing what I can. Everything that comes across my plate, I do. I'm a hard worker, but in their mind, they don't like the non-traditional relationship that we have. All that being said, I like what Annie says, that the connection that we have supersedes anything worldly. And then tying into what Jen said, she said not to be mushy, but she was talking about the connection that we have. And I agree with everything Jen said. We do have a connection that definitely supersedes anything worldly. And it also supersedes any other relationship I've ever had. I've never experienced anything like the relationship I have with Jen. It cannot be denied that, in my opinion, we are soulmates in the way that each of you described it. And continuing Annie's quote, it's not about passion, needs, or wants. There isn't a need to try to understand the other person. There is no loss or leaving because the connection can't be broken. I feel all of that is true, that our connection can't be broken. If it could be, it probably would have been already. I've known a lot of people that have caved in to the opinions of their family of origin or friends. Now, as far as I know, whatever friends Jen has loves me, doesn't have any problem with me personally. It's just the family, and it's because they don't know me. So Jen's thoughts about me and how she feels about me and how she knows me definitely supersedes anything anyone else says. But if it didn't, I mean, it could be the case that Jen believes her family and believes her parents more than what she knows to be true in the connection she feels with me. And I'd be in a, up what creek without a paddle if that were the case. But I'm glad that it isn't. So it can't be broken. So Annie, thank you for your comment. That was very, very wonderful. So getting to the answer to the question, as far as I'm concerned, I do agree that it's a hard question to answer. I don't know that it can be defined, but I like what everyone said. And I would say that it is a connection that isn't like every other connection you have. It is stronger. It is more unbreakable. And as Annie said, with Jen, I don't have to try to get to know Jen or understand her. It just seems like from the beginning, there were certain things that when we got into a friendship, to me, it seemed like we'd known each other for a long time. And you don't have that with everybody. So whether there's any such thing as soulmate or not, I feel Jen is my soulmate. And I can think of a couple other people that I've known throughout my life that there was some kind of soulmate type of connection, if that makes any sense. Okay, that's my answer, if it was an answer. Next question is, do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous and something over which one has no control? We're going to go backwards order, and I'll answer first, and then Glenn will be up next, and then Jen and Marisa. Do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous and something over which one has no control? Whether they're spontaneous or decided, I don't think they're decided. Although I like Cloud Atlas, I said I don't really believe in reincarnation, which I don't. I do believe that we meet all kinds of people, and if you're in a relationship with them, it is a decision at some point. How many people have you met that you might like them, they might like you, but you've never taken your relationship with them to the soulmate level, or romantic relationship that just didn't go anywhere? Or you meet someone that's married to someone else already, and you might have a connection of some kind, but unlike the article talks about, you weren't willing to leave your family to be with this other person that you had one magical night with. That's all a decision. Just like in the article, it was the woman's decision to do what she did. Whether we think it's right or wrong, that was a decision she made. So the meeting of the person, Jason, might have been spontaneous, but she definitely decided to do something. It wasn't decided for her, and she had control over what she did. And again, whether I agree or disagree with what she did, it was her decision. So it wasn't a predestined thing in my mind. It was something that happened, and she looked at the situation. She searched her feelings that she was having for this guy, and she responded out of that. That's my answer to that. What do you think, Glenn? Do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous, or something over which one has no control?
Yeah, I'll start that again. I made those questions hard for myself as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I'll get to her situation later, but in general, I would say if you're totally open, that you really don't have control over it. I think some of these things just happen, and
right,
the wonder of it just hits you, and that's how it is. I've never thought on a personal level that it's about a decision. So I thought, okay, it just is. It is. It just manifests itself, and you really don't get a choice. You can attempt to deny it, which can be very painful, or you can go with it. I think that's where the decision comes in. But I don't think the decision is based upon what happens. I think the decision is based after it happens. If that makes any sense.
Well, sure, it makes sense.
What do you do with it?
Yeah.
You know, after thinking, oh my goodness, this is a situation. Now what am I going to do?
Right. Yeah. So just for clarity, please. It sounds like. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you? Please continue.
No, you didn't. Please ask.
So the meeting of the person, for instance, let's talk about the article. So in that meeting, when she met Jason, that was a spontaneous meeting that she didn't have any control over. So the decision came after. Is that kind of what you're saying? Do I grasp it even a little bit?
Yeah. She didn't decide to do anything. She didn't decide at that moment to race off, did she?
No.
She didn't decide there and then. Right at that table, I'm going with this guy.
Right.
No. The decision to leave her husband and the decision to go seek out Jason came after. But she had no control over the actual event that she described as having met her soulmate.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I agree with that. I like when I met Jen, I didn't decide to feel a connection to her. I didn't decide to feel a connection with Glenn when he and I started talking when my mom died. In fact, I was kind of kicking and screaming about the whole thing initially. Died down pretty quickly, but I wasn't looking for a connection with Glenn from Australia. That wasn't something I was looking for. It just sort of happened, and I'm glad that it did. And I can think of other people in my life too. Well, just going back to Jen, the way that she and I met, it definitely seems otherworldly to me. Neither of us were looking for the relationship that developed out of having met online in a Christian Facebook room. We didn't, neither one of us were looking for it. It just did happen. There were decisions, I believe, that were made by both parties, because even recognizing that there's a connection of some sort, certainly her situation at the time was pretty tenuous in that she had been married when we were friends, and separate from me, she made the decision to leave an abusive marriage after 14 years. And then as a result of that, the friendship turned into something more with me. So there were decisions. I'm not saying that we don't make any decisions. The point I'm making to what Glenn's saying is that neither one of us decided to have friendship first and then other feelings develop as a result of having met. It just happened. I mean, I again, not to be mushy as Jen was saying, but when I first met Jen, when we were at the friendship level, now I admit to having had feelings already. But as friends, when we actually met in person for the first time and we hugged, I have to say that it felt like a stronger connection than hugging, the mailman. If anyone does that, see the mailman, give him a hug. I mean, felt very different than that kind of hug would feel for me. And then, it's just the whole relationship is different than with anyone else. So appreciate your answer, Glenn. And let's hear from Marisa now before I continue to talk more and more and more. Marisa, do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous, or something over which one has no control? What do you say?
I think the chemistry between people is what it is, like Glenn says. I agree. It's just something that is.
Okay.
And the only thing you have control over is what you do about it or what you don't do about it.
Right. Okay.
That's. I know it's not a big, long answer, but
it doesn't have to be. That's okay. That's all right. When I give my answers, someone has to take the hit on it. Take one for the team and give a short answer. So thank you, Marisa. Okay. Oh, hello to Believe on Lord Jesus Christ. Welcome, my friend. We're glad that you're here. What a wonderful gentleman this guy is. And we may be doing, I haven't talked to the other folks on the panel about this, but we may be doing a write-up written by Believe. And I'll share more about that. I have to really, really read it, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I will. So thank you, Believe, for being here tonight. We appreciate you. Okay, Jen, I skipped you in the order. I said,
I know. How dare you?
How dare I?
That's fine. I don't care.
Sorry, you're up. Do you think deeper connections are decided or spontaneous, or something over which one has no control? What do you say?
I think that, like Marisa said, that, it's either there or it's not, that connection. You can't force it or create it out of nothing.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could if you were in limerence and you were making fantasy up.
Sure.
But I think the decision comes in, like Glenn said in the chat, you have a decision to step toward it or away from it. Because you might have an amazing connection with someone and decide not to go with that. It might scare you. It might freak you out. You don't know what to do with it. I actually had a friend who got out of an abusive marriage, and she lived in Virginia, where I'm from. And she moved to California, and she met an amazing guy. But because she was so used to dysfunction and toxicity, she ran away from it, and it was a healthy relationship. I don't know if it was soulmates per se, but she decided to pass, and she regrets it. Yeah. So yeah, I think the decision comes into the part of how to respond to it. But I don't think that particular kind of connection underneath the title of soulmates that we're discussing, I don't think it's something that you can. You can't meet someone and decide. I mean, I guess you could decide that they're your soulmate, even if they're not. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hope that made sense.
Well, sure it does. Just to prove that it makes sense. So you're saying if limerence is involved, as you described from the article, as putting the feelings onto someone that may or may not be real, but you're creating a relationship in your own mind with a person. Is that close?
Yes.
And then, so if that is happening, in answer to this question, you could be making it into something that it might not be, if that's the case. And then, mistakes could be made or decisions could be made out of that. And if you're making a decision based on something that isn't real, then obviously but you don't have any control over the connection itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Close enough? Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone answered that question. Let me check the chat here real quick. Okay. Next question. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you? What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you? We'll ask Glenn first. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you, Glenn?
Another tough question. Geez, I'll have to start reading these more often. once again, I just think it's indefinable. It's like trying to put words to something that is inexplicable. It's extremely difficult. What can I say that makes any sense? I can say this. Can you come back to me, please?
Sure. Sure. I'll answer it. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you? It's kind of what I said about Jen a few minutes ago. I haven't felt this kind of connection. I didn't use the word depth of connection, but it definitely is a deep connection with Jen that I feel. And I have felt that in friendships too. It's not just for me. It's not just romantic. It is with Jen, but we were friends first. And I felt a depth of connection in a friendship way at first, because just keep in mind that when we met, she was married. And that's, to me, for a lot of reasons, that's a hands-off sort of thing. Now, however, I didn't have any control over that feelings developed, even though I knew that she was at that time unavailable. So that was a spontaneous occurrence, despite the actual situation that she was in, and also by proxy the situation I was in because of my own personal beliefs. And those would be that if someone's married, they're off limits to me. And whether people agree with that or not, I mean, people have their own morals and values. That's just mine. In fact, when I started to have feelings for Jen, I felt a lot of guilt about it because of that. It's like, what am I doing? But I also knew in the same way that I didn't have any control over that. I just could control, as Glenn says, to step forward, step back, or not do anything. But when the relationship status changed, then I made the decision to step forward, and Jen made her own decisions. But a depth of connection not felt before, to me, it means it is hard to define, as Glenn said. But I think it means, in this concept of soulmates, it means that there are things that connect you to the person that you don't just have with everyone. That's the best way I know how to describe it. And I'm sure that everyone can look at their own lives and see that they have connections with some people that are deeper than others, for sure. We can use the proverbial mailman again that you hugged there on the front porch in your minds when I mentioned it. What kind of connection do you have with the mailman? Obviously, it's close enough if you actually give him a hug to have physical contact, but does it go further than that? Are you just glad he brings the mail? What other depth of connection do you have with him? I don't know. But it can be different than the relationship you have with your husband or your wife or any members of your family, etc. So I don't have any trouble believing that there are connections that are deeper than others, and that some of them you haven't felt before. Certainly that's true for me as far as Jen is concerned. And like I said, true for a couple of other people as far as friendships are concerned. I have friends that I have a deeper connection with that I haven't felt with other quote unquote friends. So that's not hard for me to get. All right, let's go to Jen next on this one, since I skipped her in the rotation last time. Jen, what does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you?
I'll give an example. So when I first met you and Glenn and started talking to you guys, I felt like I had been in like a crowd of people my entire life, and it was just dark. And I felt like you guys were just shining lights. It sounds so corny. It felt like, I was seen. It felt like I had finally met two people that wanted to be seen as well, and known. And I just have never come across people that were as open as you guys were. It was like living in a world of aliens and finally meeting two human beings.
Wow.
So that's a good example.
Sure.
Read the question again one more time, please.
Certainly. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. It's being known. It's being with someone or meeting someone that is open to being known.
Good. That's good.
That's a really big one. And it's almost like meeting someone who is sort of operating on a specific level of being.
Sure.
Just very present, very open, authentic. And yes, in a way, like you had mentioned earlier, you feel like you've known that person.
Yeah.
There's just a synchronicity that happens that it just clicks. And I don't even know if it clicks, actually. I think it's just there, as soon as you meet them, it's just there.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. It is very difficult to put into words. Like you're just on, if you were not trying to be new agey, but it's almost like you're on the same frequency.
Yeah.
And you could kind of put that into radio terms. You've been living in static your whole life, and all of a sudden you meet a person and this particular station just comes up clearly and rings like a bell, and you're like, whoa, what?
Wow.
So that would be
great
my answer.
Analogy. Wow, that was great. Yeah, so dimensional frequency, vibrational kind of connection with a person. Never felt before. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. We'll say hello to Wyo Dino. I think I said that correctly.
Dino.
Wyo Dino.
Wyo Dino. Sorry, Wyo Dino.
Hi,
welcome.
Wyo.
We're glad you're here. Thank you for coming. All right, before I get to Glenn, I'm going to read, let me put it on the screen here. This is me says, she read the question first. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you? Their answer is, I think it's when something within us that we were not yet aware of within ourselves blossoms and comes to life. Fantastic answer. Thank you. And let me just check and see if anyone else answered the question. No, and that's okay. Guys, if you do want to answer the question like This Is Me did, please just put it in the chat, and you can highlight it or capitalize it or just address it to one of the panel. We'll be able to see it better. Okay. Glenn, you're up next if you're ready. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you?
Well, I think you guys have answered that well, but I just want to just question. Well, we'll take a difference of opinion with Jen on the part where she said when you meet them. Now, from my own personal experience, I don't think I knew that the connection was there before I met the people that I would say I'm soulmates with. I didn't need to meet them. If that makes sense.
Well, sure.
That does make sense.
They're irrelevant, or regardless.
You mean in
of
person?
Whether I met. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't met you guys in person yet either, so I see what you're saying.
Well, you didn't. Did you say meet in person, or
I said meet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said meet, but I online too. Like I know you and Linda had a connection, Glenn, and you guys were writing.
Yeah.
Before you ever met in person, and you guys definitely had a connection. So I agree.
Yeah, I don't think it means meeting in person. I just use the example of hugging Jen as a physical representation of what I was already feeling before. But definitely, I mean, Glenn, I have met you in person twice, but the connection I felt with you would definitely happen online. It wasn't that we met again yet in person. So I get your point, and I agree with it. It doesn't have to be when you meet them physically in the same physical space.
Yeah, well, like with your mum, when I met her, I can pinpoint the very moment where that decision was taken to come forward or step back.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can see it. It's a long time ago, but I can see it very clearly in my head.
Yeah.
And so that really was and I can't say, but I think if that decision to come forward hadn't been taken at that point, I don't know what would have happened. I can't answer that, but it would have been a tragedy. I would have thought. I would think.
Right.
No, I would say for sure it would be a tragedy.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, I had it on here. Okay. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Answer my question. He says, I can only answer that question with my experience with God. When I literally came to a point where I completely trusted in him philosophically, spiritually, intellectually, and sentiently. Thank you. Thank you, Believe. Appreciate that. Yeah, so that was good timing because the next question does relate to believers. So get your typing fingers ready to answer this question. I think everyone answered that last one, I believe. Yep.
I don't believe I did, but
Oh, I'm sorry, Marisa. No, I don't want to not include you. Please.
Could you read the question again for me, please?
Well, certainly. What does a depth of connection not felt before mean to you, Marisa?
To me, all I really have to add, because I agree with a lot of what you guys said, but I just wanted to add that to me, if I'm noticing that kind of connection, then that at very least alerts me that, hey, this is somebody I need to pay attention to. Right. I can learn something. I can have, some enjoyable times in my life with this person. And Jen, you're right about frequency. Everything has a frequency. And I think when we meet people of a similar frequency, that's going to make us feel that euphoria, that rush, that just regular everyday family and acquaintances just doesn't register that way with us. So it tells me, pay attention to this person. They're here for a reason. They're very special. So that's all I wanted to add.
Great point.
Thank you. I'm glad that you reminded me that you hadn't answered yet. That was well worth it. Thank you. All right. Moving on. The next question, for believers, I'm guessing, and it is only a guess, that some of you will say soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God. And then he says maybe it can be both with people and God. Maybe it will be seen as the work of nefarious forces. That's the point at which I chuckled when I read it, because I know why he's asking that. It's this idea that I'm sure from an outside perspective, there's a lot of believers blame everything on Satan. I don't. I think there's enough wickedness in men in general. You don't need to have a demon behind every bush, so to speak. But the difference between Glenn and I'm sure, there are beliefs wise, I'm sure there's more than one difference. But this idea of nefarious forces, I totally believe that nefarious forces exist. But I'm saying that you don't need outside forces to make poor decisions and to be violent and hateful and have all these human emotions that we all have to confront in ourselves. But anyway, for believers, I'm guessing, and it's only a guess, that some of you will say soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God. Maybe it can be both with people or God. So what do you think, Jen? Glenn is asking, for believers, which we are, he's saying soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God. Can it be both, Jen? As a believer, can it be both with people and God? What do you think of that first?
That is a really good question. I think the soul and spirit connection with God is very different from anything that we can have with another human being.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's on a completely different level we can't imagine.
Right.
We get like sort of glimpses of it here on earth. And I think that particular connection that we can feel and have with another human being, it's still valid. It's just different.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, sure. I didn't know if you were done. I thought you were pausing, but
sorry. Short and sweet. Short and sweet.
More information, Jen?
More information?
Yeah, please. You can.
Yeah. I think, gosh, how could I explain that better? I just think because God is our creator and he's the embodiment of creation and love. And because he knows us on a level that as open or authentic as we can be here on this human earth with another human, it supersedes that.
Mm-hmm.
because he is our creator.
Sure.
And so that connection is just unfathomable. It's hard to wrap our minds around. I believe it's hard for us to wrap our minds around how extensive that connection is with God, and even trying to experience that here on earth until we pass and are in his presence. And then I think if we had earthly bodies in heaven, we would just explode, with just the revelation of that particular connection with God. And that's what sets it aside from, or not sets it aside, but sets it apart.
Yeah.
From the connection that we can have with another spirit in a human body here on earth.
Right. Before I ask you the next part of the question, maybe this will help a little bit too. It's that we believe God to be more than just our creator, but part of our belief system is that he created everything. And also he does not have human faults and frailties. Now, that is arguable from an atheist perspective, I'm sure. But as far as believers are concerned, he is a perfect being, all-powerful, all-knowing, present everywhere. And so our relationship, as Jen was describing, I think she did a good job of describing it. But it's difficult to explain to someone that doesn't believe. And I'm sure it seems crazy. But as Jen was saying, our connection with God is hard to describe, but it is different than human connections. It'd be like, and this is not a great analogy, but it'd be like if there was a person that created an android and found some way to put an AI in them so that they had human feelings, etc. I would guess that whatever that android's connection is to other people that they meet, it's going to be different than his connection with the person that created him. Just by means of the fact that he was created. And this has been drawn out in many stories. Isaac Asimov did a lot of stories about androids and the connection they had to their creators. Really great books, in my opinion. But anyway, that's science fiction. But that's the closest I can come to describing one of the reasons why it's different. It's also different, as I said, because of the human, as humans, we have flaws. We have these feelings in us, some of them negative, that I don't believe God possesses. So our relationship with him is going to be better because it's not exactly like obviously a romantic love relationship. And it's not quite a friendship either. Are we friends with God? Yeah, that there is a level, in my opinion, of friendship, but it can't be the same as human relationships because we're not relating to someone or something that's on the same level as we are. So it's different for me in that way. So I will finish answering when it comes around to me, but I just wanted to add that. Jen, what do you think about Glenn's ending part of the question? Maybe it will be seen as work of nefarious forces. And let me ask Glenn.
Quite understand that part.
Yeah. So Glenn, can you explain what you meant? Because the first part is not negative at all. It's just soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God. And then you say maybe it can be both with people and God. So what do you mean by maybe it will be seen as work of nefarious forces?
I only put that in because I've heard on so many broadcasts that the idea of Satan does this and the devil does that, and it's interposed in everything, and it's all narcissists are infused with the devil and all this kind of stuff. I think, well, it seemed a fair question. Do you see that these things could be the work of things other than God? I mean, obviously, it's a totally foreign construct to me because I don't believe any of it, but I thought maybe some people out there may see these sorts of connections as underpinned by something that's not so wholesome. Don't know. Hence the question.
Well, I'm saying, how does it relate to? So we're talking about soulmates, obviously. So how does nefarious forces relate to soulmates?
Well, it relates in the sense that I would imagine, and it's only a guess.
Okay.
As I said,
yeah,
that you would be saying that God has an influence over everything. So hence, God has an influence over those situations where you can identify or define as a soulmate. So if God can do it, why can't Satan be the same?
Oh, so theoretically, Satan could be or come across as being a soulmate for a certain individual. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Satan could be influential in the same way that you could say God is influential. That's what I'm saying. I thought they both got. Haven't they got equal power? Or I don't know.
No,
It's all a bit outside my frame of reference.
Okay. No,
it's in the bottom of the ocean somewhere.
Okay. If you look at it, if you look at it as just a story that's been written, okay, look at it from that perspective. In the story that we're reading, God has all power, and his creation, Lucifer, would have limited power, but more power than we have as humans. Does that make sense? So it wouldn't be the same level of power, but theoretically, I can go along with you and say that there are people that worship Lucifer, and to them, I'm sure they would say that they have some kind of soul connection to Lucifer, just like they would with anyone else. But it's different to them as well, because they're worshiping a created being rather than it being like a human on human relationship. I'm sure they would say it's a little bit different for them, in the same way that it's different for believers who have a relationship with God, if that makes any sense. That whole thing is just a little has a lot of depth to it, and it might be a topic for another time. But so, Jen, do you want to answer that? Do you think that nefarious forces are involved in this whole idea of soulmates?
I mean, it's a possibility, in the sense that I think it can be twisted. And sure. I know that Satan loves to play around with lust. I think sometimes lust can put you in a position to think that somebody's your soulmate.
Yeah.
There's manipulative people out there that can be very convincing that they are your soulmate.
Oh, sure.
And sort of project onto you or mirror you and stuff to make you think, my gosh, I met the man of my dreams or the woman of my dreams.
Right.
And in that sense, I think there could be some nefarious actions going on in the spiritual realm.
Sure.
Not always. I mean, we can't see the spiritual realm, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
So it's a really great question that could be explored, the whole nefarious forces thing. But I definitely understand why Glenn asked that, because there is a lot of talk, not on this broadcast necessarily. We have made references to, dark forces or evil forces, whatever word you want to use for it, because as believers, we know they exist. I mean, it is spiritual warfare. We're spiritual beings in a physical body. That's what we believe. And Lucifer is not bound by a physical body. He's able to transform himself into, as Scripture says, an angel of light, which is something he's doing all the time. And it says test the spirits. So obviously these meetings in the Bible with angels and demons and things like that, and not just in Scripture. You can find this in the stories and history of many cultures that have painted and written and drawn these beings that they have met. And I don't think it's all imagination. I think these beings exist, and they have shown themselves to certain people. It's not just madness. There's enough of them to make me think that people have seen them. They appear physically. And Lucifer is not above appearing as an angel of light. And in that way, I believe he could fool people into believing that he has good intentions in mind. And in the realm of being a soulmate, someone could, I think they could easily think that relates to Lucifer or God or any other person. As Jen was suggesting, person can represent themselves if they're aware of what the idea of a soulmate they can make the other person, or try to at least make them believe that they are their soulmate. And I'm sure a lot of these quote narcissists, they are aware of the whole idea of soulmate. It's pretty widespread. I don't know too many people that don't have some kind of idea of what soulmate is. It's just we're taking on the extra difficult task of trying to describe it even more, and it's difficult to describe. All right, let's say hello to Scully. Scully, the Jaws performance that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and Marisa has kindly put the link in there a few times during the broadcast. But this is the gentleman, Scully's House of Thrillers, the gentleman that allowed us to help him with the abridged copy of the Jaws script yesterday evening. So when you get the chance, please go over and visit Scully's House of Thrillers, and you'll get to hear the four of us working together on that. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that for now, but definitely go give it a listen if you have a chance or are liking to. All right, let's go with Marisa now. Marisa, as a believer, Glenn's asking the question. First, the quote: "Soulmates exist, but it can only ever be with God." He's saying it's a guess. He's not saying definitively that that's what a believer is going to answer. So Glenn's suggesting maybe it could be both. It doesn't have to be just God. It can be with people as well, with people and God. So answer that one first. What do you think about Glenn's question? Maybe it can be both with people and God, the soulmate connection.
I think that God can send people your way. That can be your soulmate. I think the devil can send people your way that, while they may not be your soulmate, they can certainly play the part. And Jen brought up an interesting point about narcissists who do exactly that.
Yeah.
So we really need to have discernment. If you're a believer in Christ, you need to discern the spirits of the people you encounter, the people you engage with.
Sure.
Not to be, you're not doing anything rude or disrespectful, and you don't have to do it out loud, but for goodness sake, please test the spirits that you encounter. Every living being that you encounter has a spirit. At least one, if not several others tagging along.
Right.
Right. In my experience.
Yeah.
There's nefarious beings that are assigned to each and every one of us in my line of belief.
Right.
So, and they've watched us and our family for generations and years. So they can, they know us pretty well. They can make someone appear to be exactly what we think we want.
Sure.
They can pull that one off. So,
sure.
Long answer, longer. Yes, I believe we can experience that connection, that feeling, whether it be God bringing that person about or the devil deceiving you. So I would say both in that respect. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
But do I think there's an evil soulmate? Who in the world knows? But I certainly hope not. Wouldn't that be terrible? Who would want that?
Not this guy.
Not me either.
Not this guy. No, I have enough trouble with humans. I don't need a spirit, nefarious soulmate. I don't need that. Thank you. Okay, Glenn, I don't know how you want to answer this one, but what's your take on this? Maybe it can be both with people and God from your understanding of what believers believe, and then maybe it will be seen as the work of nefarious forces. How do you want to answer those, if at all?
I can't answer it personally because it's outside of my frame of reference, but I would say that I thought a lot of believers would tend to say that the only true soulmate connection can be with God. That's what I was expecting.
Right.
But obviously, I didn't see it anywhere. Did you?
No.
I didn't. No one said that, which, as
No.
I said, surprised me. So
Sure.
Interesting responses.
Yeah.
I was sort of thinking, well, Nez is probably going to get stuck in, and true to form, and she was on the money. So I've won that bet. Yeah. So interesting. I'm just interesting answers, but it's outside of my individual reference frame.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah,
No problem.
Thanks.
So in just, following this down the road just a little bit. So in your mind, I mean, basically you've described your beliefs as that, this time on this earth is all we have. And then, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to paraphrase you, but then you are cosmically recycled, so to speak, and go back into whatever the energy is that created you in the first place. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So you call it universe for lack of a better word. I'm not saying it can have a name, but instead of God, you refer to it as universe just for the sake of making it less complex. Is that accurate as well?
Correct. Accurate.
Okay, so in the idea of universe for you, then, can you have a soulmate connection with the universe?
I call that cosmic connectedness, but I think it's not. I think it's driven by the energy of everything.
Okay.
I don't know that I would. It would be hard for me to say I have a connection with the universe, but in the way you described it, I could put a yes to that.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I was getting to. So you can understand, even if it's beyond your reference, why we call that the universe God, and why we feel like we can have a closer personal connection with something as vast as a creative force of some kind.
It is perfectly logical and sensible to me that could be the way it is for people other than myself. Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Easy to accept.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. That was worth it. All right. And there are a couple quotes in here from the article. If we have time, if time allows, I may go over each one and we could talk about that a little bit more. But I'm going to scroll down to the last question, above which Glenn says whether or not her soulmate experience led her to end her marriage. The bottom line is, was there any lack of integrity in her actions? Was there any moral compromise? Were her children affected negatively or benefited positively? Is she now being her, quote, true self, unquote, rather than a, quote, pretend self, unquote? We may get into those in just a minute, but the underlined, highlighted question next is the personal side of all this. Is anyone willing to put their hand up to have an experience of such connection? And I'll go first on this one. The personal side of all this is anyone willing to put their hand up to having an experience of such connection? Yeah. I mean, my experience with Jen, well, the first time I ever, quote unquote, met Jen online was in that Facebook room, Christian Facebook room. I'll just leave it there. And when I first saw her comments, I probably saw a couple comments, and I have always told her that her use of emojis I found to be quite imaginative and unique. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's not unique, but it was to me, and that was because of the connection that we had, even though it hadn't been realized yet. I mean, who knows? But I noticed her, is the point. Out of all the people, there's probably at that time, maybe, I don't know, 500 people in there, 400 people, something like that in that group. And out of all those people, I noticed her comments more than other people's comments. And I thought that I saw a light in her, even based on text that were typed in and the emojis and things like that, things she was commenting on. And it just interested me. She interested me just from that. So I'm willing to put my hand up that sort of connection. I'm being kind of basic and obvious here because I've already mentioned that I feel that connection, but that's my answer. And then have I ever felt it with anyone else? Like in the situation that the woman found herself in, where you meet someone at a conference or whatever, it doesn't have to be a conference. I've met people in the past that I felt an instant connection with, and not all of it was romantic. I've met guys, and no matter what any kind of other attraction other people have is their business. I'm personally not physically attracted or romantically attracted to any men, but I've felt a connection where have a conversation with a guy and find out that we have a lot of things in common, or our thinking is the same on certain topics, things like that. And I felt that. I call, and I didn't coin this phrase, but a friend of mine did, single serving friendships. I've had a lot of those in my life. You meet a guy in the airport or a girl in the airport, while you're waiting on a flight, and you strike up a conversation, you find a lot of things in common. Little things like that have happened to me many times. And a few come to mind. So I'm guessing that that's true for everyone. That you put your hand up and say that you've had these, although short, maybe had a connection with someone that you couldn't quite explain, that, in trying to put a label on it, could have been a soulmate-like connection that didn't ever lead anywhere. That's a possibility. All right. Let's go to Marisa first on this one. Marisa, the personal side of all this is anyone willing to put their hand up to having an experience of such connection?
You can't see me, but I have both hands up.
Okay.
Whee! I have had the experience of not just meeting somebody that I had a connection with, that was somebody good for me, and hopefully I did something good for them or do something good for them. And I've also been taken in by the nefarious narcissists who want to portray the role of someone who is, oh, hey, we've got all this in common. And,
Yeah.
I've been there. That's why I raised both hands, because I've done them both.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I've been there. And, people can criticize and judge and whatever they want, but we live life one day at a time, and hopefully we do the best we can. And we can pray for discernment, but ultimately the choices to move forward when we meet somebody, that's on our shoulders. We can play the blame game all we want, but we're still the ones who make the choice to move forward or back away. And, we can play woulda, coulda, shoulda all day long, but at least I'm glad I went through these experiences looking back, because now hopefully I can not just heal by sharing, but help others as well who've gotten burned on the side of stepping forward and either acknowledging someone that they had a valid connection with and it just didn't work out, or being taken in by somebody who was only just pretending to be a soulmate type person.
Sure.
So,
okay.
There you go there. Sorry, I kind of blabbed on and on. Sorry about that.
No, it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't blabbing at all. Thank you. I appreciate your point. And I'll say hello really quickly to Zenwen AZ. Welcome. We appreciate you being here. And also our friend Lon from Fisherman in a Box channel. If you haven't gone over and seen Lon's comment, Fisherman in a Box, if you're a believer, definitely go visit him. If you also believe in geocentricity, then also another reason for you to go and listen to his broadcast. And we love it when he comes by for a visit. So welcome, Lon. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping in and saying hello. Okay. And where were we? Okay. So Marisa answered. Let's ask Jen next. What do you think, Jen? Are you willing to put your hand up to having an experience of such a soulmate connection as we're talking about tonight?
Absolutely. I mean, I have that with you, I feel.
Yeah.
And I've had it with a couple of friends, and it's an amazing experience to have a connection with another human being on that level.
Yeah.
It's such in stark contrast to other, acquaintances or friends you might have where that connection isn't there.
Right.
So it's a pretty just fantastic experience. It's a blessing. It's a miracle. It's so many different things. Yeah, it's wonderful.
So you agree with me in saying that how you recognize that it's a different type of connection is based on all the connections that you have and looking at it from that perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was married before, so I this is all hindsight for me. It's all looking at it in retrospect. But I can see that I forced something to happen because I wanted it to happen, and I'm not sure about the limerence in regard to my first wife. Maybe there was some of that going on, but I definitely tried to love the person I thought she could be, as I've said before, rather than the reality of who she was. Is that limerence? I don't know. This is the first I've heard the word, so I'd have to look
Yeah,
into it more.
it does sound like it. It's you have these chemical feelings towards someone, or I mean, I guess it could be real or it could be manufactured within yourself.
Right.
And you're projecting that on another person, assuming that they're having those same feelings and connection that you're having.
Right.
So you're sort of creating a little bit of a fantasy. And limerence even goes as far as when you go, they're always on your mind. You're always thinking about them, and you're sort of concocting this history with them. Like if they stop by your shop and give you a hug, and you get all these feelings and you think they feel it too. And then you start reading too much into it. Like, oh, they're into me and they must feel the same thing. And it just kind of goes downhill from there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, it did go downhill for me. Downhill and then right back uphill again to a mountaintop experience. So I'm glad that it happened. But fortunately, I can be transparent enough to admit that limerence did play a part into ever having married that person in the first place. Certainly, I can see now that my ex was not a soulmate. I'm not just saying that because it didn't work out. I'm saying that because once I got into the marriage, I realized that she had misrepresented herself, and I helped her with that because even the things that I brought up to her that were issues or red flags, quote unquote, she said that she would work on them. And I've talked about that enough. I'm not going to go into a big long thing about it. I'm just saying that looking back, I don't think that she was a soulmate. I wanted that. I wanted to make her a soulmate, but that doesn't work. You can't. Either the connection is there, it's a spontaneous thing that you're not making a decision on. But what that does is it proves that you can't make it happen. To me, it proves you can't decide that someone's a soulmate if they're not. Either they are or they aren't. So that doesn't, to me, have anything to do with a decision that you make. So I agree with Glenn on that part. Either it is or it isn't. So thank you, Jen. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Glenn? What's your take on this? Are you willing to put your hand up to having an experience of such connection?
Yeah, I am. I've just been thinking, how much am I going to reveal? That's the harder part.
Reveal what you want. Reveal what you want.
Okay, I'll take it from two angles, and I'll use your mum and Sandra because they're my two most upfront examples, and people are familiar with them. What surprised me was that how soulmate connections can manifest in life in quite a different way. Like on the one hand, it can be a very sort of raw, unbridled, passionate manifestation connection. It just goes off the charts. And on the other hand, it can be holistic and calm. And now you would think those two things are at the opposite end of the spectrum, but there's incredible power in both of them. Does this making sense?
Yeah.
That the power of that connection is still so strong. It doesn't have to be, all this full on energy. It can be just something that just is. It just is how it is. It just like opens up. It's like meeting someone that you could say you'd been married to for 30 years or 20 years, whatever. It just gels. It just like the energy is just so easy. Now, so that's the first point, that it can manifest itself in so many different ways. The next part is what happens when one party of a soulmate connection attempts to deny it in subsequently?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like with your mum and myself. Okay, I don't want to lose it here because it hurts.
Yeah.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it hurts. After a long time, it still hurts. So, yeah. Okay. I think from my point of view, we had acknowledged that such a connection existed. There's no question about that. The question is, I chose not to deny it.
Right.
I said, I can't deny it because it is part of me and I'll never deny it. She, on the other hand, tried to force herself into denying such a connection existed, and I saw how much it hurt her.
It did. I can attest to that. I don't want to interrupt your thought, but I can attest to that. It was excruciating to watch, and it was something that I saw. I'll just say that, and say that I watched her get communications, and I didn't know at the time that she had sent communications to you. I thought they were unrequited attempts at connection from you. Found out later that no, that's not the way it happened. But either way, I saw her struggling with whether to respond or how to respond or whatever, and I saw it as a constant battle for her, back and forth, back and forth. And I have already shared this, but I said to her at one point, you obviously have something with Glenn, and this was when she wasn't with my dad again yet, but in that in between time, I noticed, because every time she kept bringing it up over and over and over again, and I just don't think that you keep bringing up something if there's no connection. It would just mean nothing to you. You wouldn't even mention it to anyone else if you're getting these communications from someone that you have no connection with. Why would you share it with anyone, especially your son? So I definitely saw that there was a struggle on her part, and it was painful for her, I thought.
It's very difficult to sit as one side of a connection like that and feel another person's pain. I don't think it's one of those things, unless you've experienced it, you can't know.
Yeah.
Because it sits with you every day, and it is difficult. I mean, you obviously learn to live with it. So I'm saying to anyone out there, even if you have experienced such a thing, and even if you're not together with that person, don't deny it.
Right.
Just please embrace it for what it is, and for the gifts that you've received from that person.
Yeah.
It will allow you to live your life at least without the distress that I felt.
Right. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just on this, before we move on, I wanted her to give into it. I didn't understand it back then like I do now, having spent all this time getting to know Glenn more. But it has put things into perspective now, because I do have a great memory, and I remember these things happening, and I remember what a struggle it seemed to be for her. But there was a point, even though I didn't understand the connection as much as I do now, back then, I had finally said to her, just my goodness, obviously you have feelings for this person. Why are you trying to fight it? She never answered that. And I never understood it back then. I didn't understand why she was fighting it. Now I do understand it now. And this is just a theory on my part. I think that she did have a connection, definitely, with Glenn. And I think that it scared her. I think that she felt like she didn't deserve happiness. And I think a part of her at least knew that she could be happy in a relationship like she had with Glenn. And she just couldn't do it. And that is the saddest thing of all. I mean, it's sad what Glenn is saying. The idea of possibly you not denying a connection to someone, and they're refusing to accept it. They're denying it. And you know damn well that they shouldn't deny it, that there is a connection. You can't tell Glenn there wasn't a connection with my mother. There was. I could see it. And certainly in all the letters I've read before and since her passing, I know that there was a connection. I mean, Glenn still feels it today. That's not bullshit. That's a connection. And I agree with what Glenn is saying. Don't deny it. If you have a connection like that, it should be nurtured. It should be grown, but you certainly shouldn't deny it. That's an important lesson, in my opinion, to learn. So thank you, Glenn, for sharing, even though that part's difficult. I appreciate that so much. Did everyone answer this question? I have forgotten who has answered and who hasn't. Just stop me if you've all answered, then we can move forward.
Okay.
Okay, everyone answered. All right, great. Great. Okay, we have about 20 minutes left. So what I would like to do, and if anyone has an idea of what we'd like to do, there are a couple of other things that we can discuss within some of the comments that were made, and also these questions that Glenn put in gray. Glenn, I know you didn't intend necessarily for me to focus on these, but does it make sense to go over them now and get people's opinions?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the first one is, and this is, never in my life have I encountered someone rather. Oh, no, that's not. Yeah. Never in my life have I encountered someone romanticizing a one-night stand that didn't even happen. Does anyone have a comment about that? What do you think about someone doing that? And before we do say anything, in my mind, at least, it's not our intention to demonize this woman or we don't know why she did what she did. We can't be in her shoes. We can't feel what she felt. So in us just talking about it, we're just entertaining the ideas as a result of having read the article. And that's all we're doing. Okay. So it's not an attempt to make fun of her or make her look like she's a bad person or anything like that. So having said that, does anyone want to comment on this first commenter's comment?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I think it's extremely narrow-minded.
Right.
There you go. I don't have to say any more.
Okay.
Did you just read the never in my life comment, or was it a different one?
No, that's the one.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to say about that, Jen?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. No problem. What about you, Marisa?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
Well, hooray for them if they've never had that experience. How quickly people want to judge other people walking their walk, living their lives, walking in their own shoes.
Right.
We don't know this woman. We don't know her medical situation. We don't know what kind of relationship she had with her husband.
Right.
We don't know if she was going through abuse. All I can deduce, at least with somewhat of an educated guess, is that she was not happy with the marriage she was in, to the point where she was looking for anything, any kind of lifeline, anything to validate her as a person, as a woman, to maybe feel attractive again. Something, whatever she wasn't getting, she found, or at least thought she found, with this other person.
Right.
I can't stand in judgment. I can't say I've never grasped out for anything, a glimmer of hope, when I've been in a dark place or a bad relationship.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So who cares what one snarky commenter has to say? You know, none of us know this woman and what she was going through.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We don't, one of the things you said, a lot of things, Marisa, that I agree with, but one of them is we don't know what the relationship was with her current husband. It's easy to hear the story that took me, I don't know, 5 minutes to read to you guys. There's got to be a lot more to it. I don't think that if she were happy and not in an abusive situation and with kids involved, I don't think she would throw it all away. That's just my opinion, but I don't think she'd throw it all away for some guy she met while her husband was at a conference. That's just my opinion, though. What do you think, Jen? Do you want to comment on this one?
I kind of get where the poster was coming from.
Okay.
Gosh, that's a tough one. I also do think it's narrow-minded, and I agree with what Marisa said, that we don't know much about this person and the position she was in and what she was feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no comment. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that first one. I do think it's a little judgmental.
It is. It is. Does it matter to you, Jen, that there wasn't a one-night stand? What difference does that make, whether they had a one-night stand or not? It seems like the commenter's implying that, oh, well, if they had a one-night stand and she did this, that would make a difference. What does the sex have to do with anything?
I think I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. I think usually people think once the sex has been had, that would maybe convince someone more, whether it was actually there or not.
Sure.
That there was a connection.
Okay.
So to make a decision that there's that strong of a connection in order to leave your marriage and your kids, to end that marriage, seems a little bit extravagant based on the fact that there was no sexual intercourse.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Point. Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone answered that or weighed in on that. I agree with what everyone else says. I think it is judgmental. I'll just say that. And I'll say that we don't know, just like what Marisa said, we don't know what the actual situation is. I'll say more about that because I want to, if we have time, we have 15 minutes left or so, and I wanted to get to some of these questions Glenn asked at the end because I'm curious what people think. Maybe I'll just switch to that. These are the comments that we already read. I read them twice, actually. I read them as part of the write-up, and I also read them from the article because they were highlighted there. So I want to move down to the questions Glenn puts in here before the last question. So the first one, Glenn says whether or not her soulmate experience led her to end a marriage. The bottom line is, so the first one is, was there any lack of integrity in her actions? These are the questions I want to ask. And again, it's not to demonize her. I just want to hear everyone's opinion on these real quick. And I'll go first just to throw myself under the bus here, so to speak. Was there any lack of integrity in her actions? The only lack of integrity that I see, not knowing the full story, would have been as to the children that were involved. And we'll get a chance to talk more about that if we get to that question about were the children affected negatively or benefited positively by this. Lack of integrity. I can't judge her for a lack of integrity because I don't have all the information. I would just say, as a knee-jerk reaction, I would say it was selfish in a way to walk away from her family. And we also don't know if that meant she walked away from her children. You know, she could walk away from her husband. That doesn't necessarily mean she's walking away from her children. The article doesn't imply that she did that. So I'd say there's a part of me that thinks there was some lack of integrity, maybe the way that she did it. It seems like she didn't think a whole lot about the amount of time and who else it would affect by her making a decision like that. But she wrote a book about it, as Believe said in the chat. She wrote a book about it, so obviously she had a lot of things to say. I don't think I'll ever be reading the book, but it's out there if anyone wants to read it. Just click on the link. I'm sure they'll probably have a link to it somewhere. What do you think, Marisa? Was there a lack of integrity in her actions and as a result of this situation?
I don't have enough information to even come close to waging any kind of judgment on this person.
I mean, that makes sense.
And we don't know, again, what the situation was at home. If she was also motivated by getting away from abuse and getting the children away from abuse, then that's the opposite. That's not lack of integrity. That's doing the right thing.
True enough.
Getting themselves and them out and away from that.
True.
So again, I don't know.
Okay.
But at least it seems she's willing to share her experience.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a good thing. Right or wrong, we all make decisions, and good ones and bad ones.
Yep.
How is she any different from any of us? Come on. We've all been there. We've all made choices. And even though we didn't do exactly the same things that she did,
Yeah.
we've all had to make decisions, and sometimes we make them sooner than later, and
Sure.
we roll with the consequences. So
Sure.
no, I have no idea. I put her in God's hands. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Marisa. Well, we're not trying to be judgmental. I just wanted people's opinions on this. What do you think, Jen? Do you want to comment on, was there any lack of integrity in her actions? What do you say?
Yeah, maybe a little. I think, didn't the article say she was trying to reconnect with her husband? And that's why she went on
Initially.
to the initially.
The article did say that's why she went along with him to this conference, was to reconnect.
Yeah. I don't know. Lack of integrity.
It's not easy, Jen.
No, it's really not. I feel like if her and her husband were under the paired idea that they were trying to work on getting back together, her sneaking off with another guy, that she had that kind of a connection with, and them even kissing, I think that's a little rough on the integrity there. For her husband that she's trying to reconnect with, and why she was there, and maybe even a little bit to herself. If there was a real connection there, I would say, I don't know, get his phone number and figure out what's going on with your marriage that you're trying to rekindle.
Right.
And even think, if I'm attracted to somebody like this and I'm having these feelings to the point where I want to go on a walk with them without my husband knowing, what does that say about the marriage I'm trying to rekindle? Do some soul searching there, and kind of look at, why am I going this direction and having these feelings when I'm trying to rekindle this other thing over there?
Wow.
And maybe, tie up loose ends on that end before you move forward with somebody else.
Wow. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Thank you, Jen. What do you say, Glenn? Any lack of integrity in your mind in her actions?
None at all.
Yeah.
I'm on her page.
Okay. Yeah, I figured 100%. You were.
Yeah, you thought I would be. Yeah, well, because to my mind, she could have compromised herself, but she didn't. She went home and she obviously thought about it for some time before she made the decision to split from her husband. So it wasn't with the thought, okay, I've got the backup plan. She didn't put that in place. It's to my mind, huge integrity shown by her. She didn't sort of approach the other guy before she left her husband. Now that would have been compromising her integrity, but she didn't do that. She did it in the order that I would think is showed her integrity. So,
okay,
very much so.
Okay,
I'm on her page, and I just think that obvious to my mind, the overriding thing is that this man came into her life at that specific moment, at that time, for a purpose. We don't need to know what the purpose was, but it changed her life. Even that itsy bitsy, you could say, experience together changed everything.
Right.
It's very powerful imagery to my mind.
Sure. So in the time that we have left, I think it makes sense to skip down to the last question, because I think that's the best one, in my opinion. Is she now being her true self rather than a pretend self, Glenn? What do you say about that? And then I'm going to ask everyone else that same question, and we'll close it down.
I think that's pretty obvious.
It is to me. There might be someone listening that doesn't know how you think.
Well, that'd be good, because all opinions that are different from mine, I'm interested to hear. But it's not like she's with somebody else now. As I said, she got left she's discovered herself.
Yeah.
And that isn't that the most important part of this whole exercise.
Sure.
it's like she didn't leave her children. Like, I mean, in the third question, she did. There's no way she left her children.
Right.
I mean, I've been left and had my kids taken away, or
Yeah.
one of my children taken away. This is a very hurtful experience.
Yeah, I could
Like,
imagine.
it's emotionally debilitating beyond
Yeah.
belief. It's
Right.
just like absolutely guts you out. And so I just keep looking back through all of her actions, and I just see that she's better off. The husband's better off because it's been revealed that she didn't want to be with him. He's better off. The kids are better off. They're not. The kids are not subjected to all of that bad energy that gets sort of spread around when people are in bad relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to think, kids should grow up with their mum and dad, and the family should be together. But what I was overlooking all those years ago was the kids pick up on all this.
Yeah.
You're better off to have two positive separated parents than all the negativity that comes from two parents who really don't like each other.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I agree with that completely. And I know that the idea of Christianity in general would disagree with that. And they would say that, nope, when you get married, God hates divorce. So whether it's hell or not, you stay with that person because that's what the Bible says. And I have a bone to pick with that idea because it's clear to me that sometimes if there's not a real soul connection or there's not love in the relationship, it's not the best thing always. I'm saying always for you to stay in that type, especially if there's abuse. And then people will argue about, well, what constitutes abuse? And I think it's in the eye of the person being abused, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, whatever. And if there's children involved, it even makes more sense to not continue in the relationship, in my opinion. But that's a topic for another time, I'm sure. So I'm going to ask this question of everyone, then we're going to close it down, guys. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate you sticking around. Marisa, what do you say? Is she now being her true self rather than a pretend self? Do you agree with Glenn, or do you have a different perspective on that?
I think she's being genuine, and I think she started being her true self when she got the courage to say no more to whatever was making her unhappy in the life that she had with her husband.
Right.
And you can separate without going through a divorce. There's nothing that says you can't live separately. So, at the very least, if she's gotten herself out of a miserable or abusive relationship and her children out of that as well, then, I'm very happy for her. And I think maybe one of the reasons that she met this person, whether it was a soulmate or a distraction, whoever sent it, benevolent or nefarious in origin, the woman learned that yes, she's all these good things she apparently was not feeling or getting from her husband. She probably felt validated and attractive and vibrant and alive and important and relevant, and she probably got a lot of good positive affirmations about herself and what she could have and what she really is, instead of playing the part of the wife going along with whatever she was having to go along with for years and years and years.
Right.
So I would say now, especially since she wrote her book of her experiences, I mean, yeah, I think she's actually being herself.
Right. Thank you, Marisa. What do you say, Jen?
Yeah, this is a little tricky because I can't help but think, what if, and we don't know, I mean, I have to read the book, but what if they were hitting a rocky patch in their marriage that could have been mended and reconciled with being open and communicative to each other, which I think every couple should at least try, before throwing in the towel.
I would agree.
And maybe she wanted an escape, or maybe instead of like, for example, going to her husband saying, hey, I'm not feeling attractive to you. And we lack intimacy and I don't feel like we're connected, instead of going that route, which usually is the harder route, to start a dialogue about it, taking the easy way and having an affair, even with going on a walk and kissing. It just, the line there is like, because we don't know what was going on. Being her true self, I would say, yeah, there's some of that in there. It was hitting on a deeper part of her, which I think,
Right.
When it's coming from a deeper place, it's more authentic than the surface. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. This whole topic is pretty difficult, in my opinion. It's been a wonderful conversation, but it's definitely difficult. That's what we do here on True Story Live. We try to, talk about and have discussions about difficult topics. So thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. And I'll just say, I agree with what everyone else said about this one, which is, interesting that we all kind of agree on this. Is she now being her true self rather than a pretend self? Yeah. Yeah. Whether we agree with what she did or not, I would assume, and again, we don't have all the information, but I would assume that the marriage was maybe in some way her being her pretend self for whatever reason. So whether it worked out or not, she gave up her marriage and gave a shot at this fling, this meeting of this guy where she felt they had a connection. And commenters can comment. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make comments, not having all the information. They're going to say all the stuff that we read, some of the comments in there. I'm sure there were more, because the article says there was a Twitter explosion of some kind. I'm not going to go read all the Twitter comments. I don't care. But my point is, people are going to make comments, but the decision she made was for her. And I would say that in order to give up your marriage in that way, you're making a decision from what you believe to be your true self rather than your pretend self. I don't see a pretend self, at least in a situation like this, making the move that she made and then writing a book about it. I mean, people write books for all kinds of reasons, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like that's the case here to me. All right. We're at the top of the hour, just past it a little bit. I really enjoyed this write-up and this topic. We have more to look forward to, as this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is part one in a series. Is that correct, Glenn?
Just had to get my mic. My understanding is that it was open and there's a part two is available, which we will discuss on there, but that was the general thinking that might be going to happen.
Okay, no problem. So there's more to look forward to as far as this goes. Glenn, thank you so much for the write-up, and thank you to everyone on the panel who has weighed in as best they can with their answers on this topic of Soulmate. And as we said, the link to the article is in the description. You can click on that, and also Glenn added a couple more articles if you want to read them, but definitely listen to the song. I'm sure most of you have heard it. What a fantastic drum break in that song. Probably the best. The only thing that comes close is Van Halen's Hot for the Teacher. And that actually was a double drum dubbed over one another to get that sound, but still very, very good. So everyone probably knows Phil Collins was the drummer for Genesis and became a singer as well, and then went out on his own. And so I'm assuming he did his own drums for that song. That's my assumption. But definitely a great song. And everyone argues on what it actually meant. Glenn includes in the description that it was about a breakup. But people listen to the lyrics and they say it's a true story, that he saw someone drown and he didn't do anything. And he says that's patently untrue. But that's what a lot of people think it is. But either way, I'll let you decide for yourself what it is. I can feel it coming in the air tonight, oh Lord. and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life, oh Lord. And then lastly, the quote, a soulmate is not found, a soulmate is recognized. That's Veronica Tugaleva. That's the closest I can get to that one. My favorite comment is the first one, though. A true soulmate is a mirror, the person who shows you everything that is holding you back, the person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. Elizabeth Gilbert. That's how Glenn chose to start the write-up, and that got me right from the beginning because I believe it to be true. Every day that I wake up and get to live this life with Jen, she shows me who I am and shows me how I can be better. And of course, as a believer, God plays the majority part of that. And but it definitely helps to have someone that mirrors you, and they do it in a positive way to help you be better, not worse. And that definitely is the case with Jen. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and I'll say goodbye first. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for listening. We appreciate you being here tonight on this first broadcast of November. And for those, well, I guess for everyone in the United States, don't forget to set your clocks back. We did not forget. We went to bed early. Usually, I was telling Jen, usually on this day, whatever day it falls on, I'll stay up an extra hour and just delight in the fact that I get that extra hour that I can do with what I want. You're not actually gaining an hour. I know that. It's just they set the times back. It's weird. It's weird. No need for it anymore. So good night, everyone. And yeah, great topic, soulmate. And for those of you listening, if you have any comments, please put them in the comments section. We do appreciate the comments. And I don't know exactly what we're doing for next week, but I will say that Believe has submitted a write-up, depending on what we talk about off air. We may be able to get that up in time, or I will do a write-up. I've been working on something, but I've got a project that came in last minute, a work project, so I may be having to work on that, at least the first part of the week. But either way, we'll work it out. But we hope to see you again next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate you being here tonight. Please make sure, if you haven't already, please pop a like on the video. And if you like what we're doing here on TSL, just do us the favor and tell other people, tell your friends and family about it. We're a little known channel here in our area of the YouTube universe, and it does help if you pass the word around. Thank you so much. Jen, take a minute to say goodbye to the peoples. If you have any closing comments, please make them.
All right. This was good, but it was hard.
Yeah.
It was a really, really good topic and a really great article. I'm really tempted to read the book now because we have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh man, I wish I could have read it before we did the write-up or the show. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you for coming to hang out with us on this particular evening. Have a great week, and we cannot wait to see you guys next Sunday at 8 o'clock. Love you guys.
Jen. Thank you. Thank you. Let's hear from Glenn. Glenn, take a minute to say goodbye to everybody. And also, if you have any closing comments about the topic or anything else, please take the time to give them.
Yeah, I'll say goodnight. And boy, you know, some things in life when as soon as I put that in my head about your mum, I could feel myself losing it. So these things just do not go away.
No.
You can't make them. So as I said in the show, please don't do anything other than be gracious and thankful and accepting of the blessing that you've been given if you've had such an experience. So
yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate
that.
Thank
you, Glenn.
Last but certainly not least, we'll have Marisa close us down. And before we go, I'll just say hello and good night to our friend Debbie S., who, as far as I know, I think there was one that I noticed that she wasn't able to make it. But other than that, the whole time we've been doing True Story Live, she always comes in and says hello, usually at the beginning and the end. So we know that she listens. Thank you, Debbie, for being here. You're one of our longest remaining listeners who has always stayed with us, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone who's takes the time to be here tonight. Marisa, close us down. If you have any closing comments while you're saying goodbye to everyone, please make them on the topic or otherwise. And please, again, mention Scully's link. I know you've already put it in the chat, but just say something about that and close us down, please.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you, Glenn, for a beautiful write-up. What a wonderful discussion. We like those difficult questions. I don't mind them one bit. And I agree with Glenn as far as if you are blessed to encounter somebody that is affecting you positively, that you resonate with, that you have feel that strong connection in a good way, then enjoy it, embrace it. And you don't know how long it's going to last, but we don't know how long we have to live either. So just enjoy it if you're able to enjoy it and appreciate it for the blessing that it is. Yeah. But don't lose your discernment. Also be on the lookout for those who want to impersonate somebody that we think is, we think may be our soulmate, or we want them to be our soulmate. So you always got to keep a vigilance out there. But when you find those real connections, you'll know it. You'll know it. I believe that, and enjoy it. Thanks again, everybody, for coming tonight. And God willing, we'll see you next Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on True Story Live. And God willing, hopefully Miss Jen will be joining me in Nez Studios at some point next week, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, who knows? But I'm itching to have more fun with art with Miss Jen. And keep an eye out also. I'll be doing another Art and Truther chat one of these Saturdays coming up as well. Don't know if it's going to be next Saturday or not, but whether it is or it isn't, it'll still be on the horizon coming up soon. Thank you so much. Please go check out Scully's House of Thrillers. Scully's here in the chat. I've put the link a few times. I had a wonderful time working on Scully's production of the dramatic reading of Jaws. And I did that with Cripps here and with Jen. And Scully was reading, and we all had a wonderful time. Excellent show. Live theater always has little snags and bumps that come on the scene, but you roll with it, and the show goes on, and everybody behaved in a very professional and calm fashion, and I appreciate it. It was a wonderful time. I hope you catch that replay. Scully's House of Thrillers. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you. God bless you, and God willing, we'll see you next week right here on True Story Live.